and we're ready to go. So we're really happy to have Dr. Bryce Maxell with us today. Bryce is the program coordinator for the Montana Natural Heritage Program out of Helena. If you go online and read his bio, it's really interesting. He has studied a lot of different species in Montana across a lot of different taxa and a lot of different habitats, including amphibians, reptiles, bats, small mammals, birds, mollusks, and fish, and doing work across both terrestrial and aquatic systems. And he's going to share his experience with plants with us today. So Bryce says he's passionate about making biological information available to resource managers and the general public so that Montana's plants, animals, and terrestrial and aquatic systems, communities can be appreciated by current and future generations. So it's great to have you, Bryce. He's going to share with us the work that the program has been doing with habitat suitability models for invasive plants and maybe some of the biocontrol stuff. I'm not sure if he'll get into that today or not, but a lot of great stuff to share with us. So turn it over to you, Bryce. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jane. Can you hear me okay, and can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Well, I just wanted to start by giving everybody a little bit of background behind the Heritage Program, the Montana Natural Heritage Program. We are based in the state library, and we're statutorily part of the state library. We're part of the NatureServe network, so there are heritage programs in all 50 states, all the Canadian provinces, and a number of Latin American countries. We used to have our own spatial analysis lab and a larger ecology group. We've had some of those folks split off and go under the spatial analysis lab at the University of Montana and the ecological mapping, monitoring, and analysis group under the O'Connor Center for the Rocky Mountain West. So we work very collaboratively with all of those folks. The information that we manage is mostly centered around, at least let me give you a little background on why the program was formed. It was formed in 1985, and it came out of the coal debates in the 70s and 80s when different agencies had different information in their own databases. And there was just this movement towards centralizing information so that everybody could have a common source of information. At the same time, the Nature Conservancy was establishing heritage programs across North America and in Latin America. So some of the information that we manage includes land cover data for the state, and I'll take you through and show you some of that. Those are ecological systems. There are around 120 different ecological and sort of human-dominated systems in the state. We manage the statewide wetland and riparian mapping layer. All of those green areas there that you see in the state have been received modern mapping by us for the National Wetland Inventory scheme, and we're about 87% of the way through the state. On the individual species side of things, we manage information on around 12,000 species at this point. So if you kind of look at the bottom of this pyramid, we've got basic information on the taxonomy of each of those elements, meaning it could be a species or a subspecies. We manage survey data, so anywhere a particular protocol has been followed and what species have been detected at each of those locations. Observation data, element occurrences, which include our species of concern layer that is used in environmental reviews. We try to construct range polygons for every species, and we are right now systematically trying to model the predicted habitat suitability. In the case of invasives, it's essentially the risk of invasion for landscapes across Montana, and then we manage conservation status ranks as well. On the observations, yes.
Bryce, sorry to interrupt you, but on my screen, I see like a gray box kind of to the upper right-hand corner of your slides. Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Sorry, that's
all right.
Thank you for saying that. I would have kept going. That's just the WebEx. I want to just go into what data we're managing for our individual species. We have around 3.1 million observations of plants and animals that we've centralized to this point in time. 425,000 structured survey locations. And then we're putting ranks, global and state ranks, conservation status ranks on all of those species, whether they're critically imperiled at the global scale, is that G rank, to secure G5 on the other end of that scale, and then on the state side, the S1 being critically imperiled at the state scale, and S5 being secure at the state scale. This is an example of that species of concern occurrence layer. These are polygonal features for species of concern. When you apply for a noxious weed trust fund grant and you download an environmental summary report, we're encouraging you to strongly consider all of the species of concern that come up. And these polygonal features are what is spatially intersected with the project area that you've designated or asked for to make that list of species. And then predicted distribution models is something that we are, again, focused very much on these days so that we can fill in gaps in survey effort around the state and inform people on what species might occur in particular areas. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to our website, and I will give most of the rest of the presentation today off of our website. And I'm going to go through 3 web applications here. Our homepage here is at mtnhp.org, and I'm going to go through our map viewer website, our Montana field guide, and our species snapshot. First, I'll go through the map viewer, and this is what you'll see if you don't have agency level access, but all weed coordinators can have agency level access to this application. And I'm going to pause right there. I think, Jane, now would be a good time for one of those, that first poll.
Okay, I'll bring it up.
And just
is that showing up, Bryce?
Is showing up for me, yep. And just to remind everybody, the not, what information do we not manage?
We're about halfway there in terms of people responding.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close it and share the results.
Good job, everybody. Everybody correctly identified that we do not manage archaeological and historical site data. That would be the State Historical Preservation Office, SHPO, run out of the Historical Society. So good job. So now we're within our map viewer web application, and what we're seeing here are individual tasks where you can get summarized information for each of these data types. The general public has access to everything you're seeing. And then on each of these tasks, this is very important, I want you to remember this, these blue question marks will take you to how to use documents. So if you want to see how do I interact with or suggested use of the wetland and riparian mapping information, click on that blue dot and then click on the how to use, and that will open up a 6-page PDF taking you step by step through how to use that task. And again, each of the tasks will have that. Secondary to that, I want you to all remember that, again, if you're a county weed coordinator, you have direct access to agency level data, and you can get that set up by going to the sign in menu and then creating an account. So sign in menu and then create an account. That create account, you'll enter a user profile. And then when I see that come through, with typically your county, if you make sure that you put your title and your organization, I will see that typically the next day. And if I've got any questions about whether you should have access, I'll get in touch with you. But most of the time, I will recognize your email and get you out some training materials and orientation materials. So then next time you log in, you're going to enter your username and password. And then I would suggest everybody keep me logged in on this computer. That way, every time you get into Map Viewer, you won't have to log in. If you open up Map Viewer, you'll have access to all of these tasks until you get like a web browser update or something like that. So now you can see that you have access to a lot more tasks here. And I'll maybe show you one of these tasks just as a preliminary, the structured survey task here. And just by way of example, I want to show you some of the tools. On the upper bar, there are zoom in and out tools. So you can draw a box, zoom in, draw a box, zoom out. You can go to the full extent in the state. You can measure things in miles, kilometers, meters, feet, yards, and it will keep a running tally of those measurements, individual segments of those measurements. If there's ever anything displayed on the screen and you want to know tabular information about it, click on the identify button here, then come down and click on that observation or whatever else it is on the screen. Again, full extent, back button here. In case you've zoomed or panned around, you can keep clicking your back button to get back to where you were. On the left side of the menu are typically the query information. So in this case, let's go ahead and say that we're interested in maybe some plant information. So I'm going to go down that. You'll see that beginning letter there. It gives you a clue that we're M for mammals there. Let's look at the terrestrial AIM data. This is rangeland plot data that the BLM manages. And so we've got all that centralized. And then just test out that identify button. We can zoom in on the map and click on it, and we can see when that survey was performed and who it was performed by and what species were detected. So won't go into any more detail on that other than to say on the map layer side, you can turn on a variety of different map layers. If you want to look at stuff with a hillshade, let's say you want to put a land management layer on top of that, you can do that. And there's a slider bar so that you could maybe slide between topo map or air photos and that hillshade if you wanted to. So you can slide back and forth between the two of them. You can compare different time periods of aerial photos that way. There's a long list of layers here that you can look at. And then turn on roads, towns, and other things to orient yourself if you want to include those in your map. You can also search for a location. So I'm going to go back out to full extent here, turn off some of those base layers, and we'll search for a name feature here, and we'll search for Rock Creek. There's no Rock Creeks in Montana, right? Wow, there's a lot of Rock Creeks in Montana. If we hover over any of those on the map, I want to point out that the list on the left will scroll to that particular Rock Creek. And similarly, if I go down the list on the left, notice that it's highlighting that Rock Creek over on the map. And then if I click on one of those in the list, it will zoom me into that area. The other search features include you can zoom to a particular county. You could zoom to a particular latitude, longitude, decimal degrees, UTM coordinates, or whatever else you want to zoom into within the state. So with that intro to the general materials, let's go ahead and take another pause. And Jane, do you want to go ahead and bring up those next two poll questions?
Yeah, we'll do the first one here. I'll open it up.
Good Lord. Bryce, while we're waiting, I had a gentleman ask if anyone can access this site or if it's just weed coordinators. So while we're waiting, can you address that?
Absolutely. So there's a little bit of a background story behind this, but the direct answer is that anybody in a federal agency, a state agency, a local government has access. The reason that others don't have agency level access to view everything directly on the web is so that we continue to protect sensitive information. And that is, you can imagine a situation where you might have a rare orchid or maybe a rare snake or something that might be popular in the trade. That we want to make sure that we're making all of those data contributors, all of those agencies and individuals comfortable that when they report data to us, it's going to not jeopardize the status of those species. So that said, we're not making it freely available on the website for everybody. However, anybody can get access to the information. General information can be found on the field guide, Montana Field Guide. And if you need precise location information and you're a contractor, maybe a sprayer contractor, you can get a geodatabase from us, or you can get these reports that I'll be going through. And all you need to do is put in a mediated request to do that. In order to do that, you're going to go to our homepage here, go to data and submit request. On the submit request, you're going to enter a user profile and then make a new request. And I should say that while we're here talking about this, that let's say you do have agency level access. Let's say that you also want to you're a GIS user and you want to get a geodatabase of all this information that you can use in your local GIS. You could make a request for that in the same way. You can use your map viewer profile, so you'll already have that set up, so you don't need to worry about that in those cases. And then just go to new request and file the request there.
Okay, thanks, Bryce. Larry, I hope that answered your question a bit. I am going to show the poll results, and then I'll open the other poll question, Bryce, after you can comment on how people responded.
Good job, everybody. You correctly identified that, again, all you need to do to access the how to use documents, these question marks in the upper right of every task within Map Viewer. They'll each have their own set of how to use instructions. Good job.
Okay, we'll open the next poll. I hope people are paying attention. It seems like they are. Doing pretty well on the polls, so that's great.
And Becky, give me a heads up if there's any other questions I can answer if there's any I'm not seeing all of that on my screen, so.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be a quick answer. So there's a little bit of a pause in these polls.
Bryce, I'll follow up on that question.
Sure.
Bryce, Becky asked, would members of county weed boards have
Absolutely.
access? Okay.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, you do not have to have you don't have to have a sort of a government email per se, because I know a lot of people aren't in those situations, but conservation districts, any weed coordinator, weed board, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say just anybody who essentially is a professional resource manager or sits on professional committees or councils along those lines.
Okay, here the results are coming.
Good job again, everybody. Everybody again correctly said, look, all you need to do is go to that sign in menu and set up your user profile, submit it. I again will see that. You don't need to do anything beyond that. I will get an audit report that says, hey, somebody's created an account, and I will go ahead and toggle you over to agency level access, and I'll send you some introductory materials. So the next thing I want to get into is the environmental summary report. And the main reason for that is the environmental summary report kind of rolls up all these other information sources. It summarizes land management information, land cover information, wetland riparian information, observation data for species, structured survey data for species, and then the species of concern occurrences. So given that we don't have a lot of time today, I just want to introduce you that way, and then we'll get into the main topic, which is modeling here. But I want to make sure that you guys all know how to self-serve for your noxious weed trust fund grants and any other things along these lines for weed management. So we're within our environmental summary report task right now, and I'm going to go ahead and just turn on the hillshade map so that we've got a little bit less busy map there. And again, on our filtering side over here on the left, we automatically suggest that you include species of concern, special status species, important animal habitat, and potential species of concern. And then I am going to go ahead and just run a report for a county here. So again, we've got that how to use document that'll walk you through this, but we're going to select, we've got a whole list of geographic areas here that are pre-summarized. Counties, townships, sections, quad maps, mountain ranges, forests, FWP regions that you can choose from. Once you do that, select county here, you'll see the polygons for that layer pop up. All you need to do is come over, and I'm going to go ahead and run a summary report for Beaverhead County. So I click on Beaverhead County. It will zoom me into Beaverhead County. And at that point, if what I need for my weed trust fund grant is to include environmental summary report, I can click on download report, and that will that'll give me a chance to name it. But if I export it there, that will download a 60 some odd, maybe longer report. And we'll let that crank in the background. But what I want to go through today is that you can also explore all of those results online here. And we're going to go down to, again, here's native species summary, structured surveys, land cover, wetland riparian mapping data, land management data, biological reports, invasive and pest species. So I can go to any one of those folders and dig into the underlying data. There we go. You saw about how much time it takes to run that report. I'm not going to really go through that today with you, but I wanted to just give that as an example. You'll get a PDF and an Excel file, and that you can use for sorting through that data. Let's just show you, by way of the invasive and pest species list here, how to access information on models. So again, for Beaverhead County, we now have a list of all of the weed species and AIS species that are documented in Beaverhead County. And you can see the number of observations that we have in our database. You'll notice that a few of these do not have any observations listed. Like, for instance, yellow star thistle, we don't have an observation in our database. However, we do have a predicted habitat suitability model that has shown that that species might invade Beaverhead County. So we can go down this list and open up individual records. Let's start with Dyers Woad here, just as an example. For Dyers Woad, now we've got links out to other resources on our website. So for instance, our field guide. So that'll take you directly to the Dyers Woad account on the field guide. And we've got photos, what the species is ranked in the state, range polygon, how to identify it, range comments. This is how I was referring back to what I was talking about earlier. This is how the data is shared with the general public, and everybody has access to this field guide account. And we think we've struck a good balance with sharing data at this scale to everybody, while keeping other data sensitive and protected. So we could link to our predicted model here off of the field guide. We've got ecology information, reproductive characteristics, and management information. Also literature. So if you open up those folders, you can get into some literature. So when I open that, you'll notice that that was a new browser tab. I'm going to just close that down and go back to our original environmental summary report. And there's, again, back to my big list for Beaverhead County. Now let's go ahead and look at the predicted, well, actually, let's look at the single species overview. So we've looked at the field guide. Now let's look at the single species overview. So that will open up, again, a new browser window. We've still got our browser window open for our master environmental summary report. And now the single species overview is essentially all information that we have in our database for a particular species. So here we have surveys for Dyers woad that are gray dots. You can see all these highway surveys that could have detected Dyers woad. Let's zoom in just a tad here. I see one observation popping up there. Again, we can go up to the identify button and click on that to see, we'll select point observations to see the tabular data associated with that record. We can go over and click on the survey again and open up structured surveys to see the tabular data associated with that survey and what species were detected on that survey location. And then the colors here are predicted habitat suitability model output. The yellow is low suitability, the orange is moderate suitability, and the red is predicted to be optimally suitable for this species. So let's go back again to the environmental summary report, and I want to delve into the model a little bit here. First of all, over on the right side, you'll notice if I hover over that colored bar, those colors are the same. Red is the amount of optimal suitable habitat within Beaverhead County. Orange is the amount, so that's 17% predicted, 35% moderately suitable, and 12% low suitability. So let's go ahead and look at the write-up for this, though. So for that, we'll click on our predicted habitat suitability model webpage, and then we can download a write-up for this species. So for every model, if you could go down that whole list of species, any species that we have a model for, we have anywhere from a 11 to 20-page write-up on what we've done for modeling for that species. So for Dyers woad, I'll just kind of walk you through it here. It was last modeled in 2019. We're kind of waiting for some updated data, and then we'll rerun that model. And what did we do? We did inductive modeling, meaning we did some, it was a mathematically based model using maximum entropy modeling. And our modeling process, it takes you through the whole process. And I may show you some slides on this later in terms of our process. One thing I want to note here, at the time this model was constructed, we had 88 records in our database for Dyers woad. Because a bunch of those were spatially overlapping, we wanted to avoid spatial autocorrelation, and a bunch of the records are not precise enough. They had a large locational uncertainty around them. We only had 14 records that we could construct this model from. Then a section that takes you through the environmental input layers that we used for the model. Then a section on which output or which input layers were most important for determining the distribution of the species. So in this case, precip was important, geology was important, and ecological systems, or that land cover type, were the three most important. We also, you'll see here later on that we're dividing the output up into 3 categories, and we give you the cutoffs for those categories and how many square kilometers that is associated with. And we also give you some evaluation metrics, what percentage of the observations are falling within the modeled output and so on. I won't take you through these jackknife results. Here are the maps that are provided in the model write-up. And this is a continuous output, is our raw output that varies from 0 to 1 and then is color-coded, 0 being unsuitable in blue there, and 1 being in red. Won't bother going through that next one. We then map and look at individual records and how far they deviate from that output. And then we've been modeling a variety of species in Montana with this general approach since 2007. We're kind of on our 4th generation of doing that. And what resource managers have told us is they want to see, give me optimal, give me something that's moderately suitable, give me low suitability. And that generally has fit well with resource managers. And we advise, and my on-the-ground experience, as well as speaking with a variety of other species experts in the state, we typically encourage you to make decisions based on the optimal suitable and the moderately suitable mapped areas. The low suitability might have some suitable habitat, or in this case, risk of invasion, but those areas are typically kind of patchy in the landscape. So then we've categorized it into those 4 categories, and then we actually scale that up to 1 square mile hexagons is this last map. So again, and then for every report, we also include contact information. So, you know, if you're working in this area, here are the resource managers in Beaverhead County. They might not actually occur in Beaverhead County, but here are the agency contacts that you should consider contacting. So let's go back to that environmental summary report one more time here. And just to make the point that we could continue to go down that list, let's go down to just the next one down as another example here and do yellow star thistle. And notice that yellow star thistle has no observations in our database in Beaverhead County, but we'll go ahead and click on the single species overview again. Again, that's going to open up another browser window and bring up all the information we have in our database for this species. And again, just a little busy with that aerial photo background, so I will turn that off. And once again, you can see the surveys that could have detected the species. You could see, we can zoom in just a tad here and see how the landscape is looking. Fair amount of landscape there in the low elevation valley bottoms is looking as moderately suitable. Not, you know, the uplands seem pretty safe in terms of this model, but those low elevation valley bottoms are at risk of invasion, is what this model output is telling us. So I think right there, let's pause for questions if there are any. Are there any coming up in the chat? And again, I can't see the chat the way I've got my screen sitting, so let me know, either Becky or Jane.
Right, Bryce, thank you.
So we do have one question right now from Jesse. Who conducts the surveys?
A whole variety of folks. Most of the data that we get is from professional biologists. In the case of weeds, it could be local weed districts, could have been in the invaders database. We've got that data centralized now. It could have been the old MSU survey summary of highways. Could have been reported in EdMaps. We centralize data both directions for EdMaps. So we are trying to vacuum up essentially all data, and we'd really appreciate your help in doing that. One thing with these model outputs, I would say that the models perform really well in areas that we have data, in regions of the state where we have data, and then the further you get away from the data, the less well the models perform. So if you see output in MapViewer as you're looking at things and you go, wait, I know there's a couple populations here, please get us that information so that we can improve the resources available to everybody. Hopefully, oh, you know what? I just realized I have a slide that I could share that will help with this a little bit.
While Bryce is pulling up that slide, let's do our halfway through check-in for those of you that would like a credit for attending. So please put your name and license number in the chat box. Thank you.
Yeah, so here's a summary of how we're exchanging data back and forth at a variety of levels. So again, one thing that I think we have found over the years that's really valuable with having this central information resource is that if you're in there and you're using it and you don't see records that you know are out there, you can get them to us. So please do that when you see that situation happening. So I also want to just take you through a couple more resources on this, and then we'll show you some of our biocontrol modeling and how that information might be used as well to help inform your biocontrol release efforts. So let's maybe we can keep going down the list here. Oh, I should have noted, we're in Beaverhead County right now, and we've got our invasive species list open. But let's say we wanted to just flip over to Madison County. All I need to come over and do is click on Madison County. I've got my folder open for invasive species, and it's that easy to just move to an invasive species documented predicted list for Madison County. So, and you could toggle back and forth between counties. And again, keep in mind, you could do the same thing at the level of a township or at the level of a section and just kind of click through and get summaries of all of this information. We're obviously focused on invasive species data here today, but that's all of the native species information, the land cover information, wetland riparian mapping information, any biological reports, so we have georeference to that area as well. So, so let's go down and just pick out another, let's do maybe a common hound's tongue here. And we'll go out to the field guide for it, and I'll show you some other resources there. Let's say that we're in the field guide now here, and I've kind of taken you through that. Let's say that you wanted to make a list of species that you want your summer field crews to pay attention to or be aware of. You could do that a couple different ways. You can do it once. One way is to do that on the field guide, and you can go to the advanced search. And if you go all the way down, the advanced search just allows you to filter out and sort a variety of species, pull them out of the field guide. But if we go all the way down to the bottom, we could make our own field guide, summer 2021 field crew. And all you need to do is to make your custom field guide is just put in the scientific names of species. So let's say it has to be scientific names, but let's say I don't really know exactly what the scientific name of Dyers woad is. If I put in something that I know, I put in Senecio, for instance, I'm going to get an error, and then I can go to search, and then I can go down the list of Senecio, and okay, yep, maybe I was after common groundsel. It's a non-native species. Anything with Senecio is going to come up in that list. Actually, Tansy ragwort was what I was thinking about. So Jacobia. So I'm going to now copy that and go back to my and now I can create the PDF, success. I can store that on my desktop. Download it. And now for my summer 2021 field crew, I've got a PDF that I can print out, and they can, put it in their truck. They can have it on their quad runner or whatever they're using in the field. They can refer to stuff in the field if you don't have other information. You could also use this to work with private landowners and get them information beyond what resources you already have. One other thing I want to show you along these lines is that, let's go back out to our field guide, and then we'll go up to the main field guide. Notice now in our main field guide, we have an invasive and pest species guide. So if we click on that, there are different types of guides here. There's a guide for all the AIS in the state. noxious weeds, forest pests, ag pests, and all other non-native species biocontrols. So let's, for instance, go into noxious weeds. And here we've got the priority 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B regulated. And then if we wanted to go to individual counties, let's stick with the Beaverhead County theme, then here are all of the species in Beaverhead County that are county listed at this point. And I could go ahead and download a PDF there. At every level of the field guide, there is a little PDF symbol. And if you click on that PDF symbol, you can have a custom guide. So here we go. Here's all of the invasive noxious weeds for Beaverhead County. And that will give you, again, a one-pager showing you that general data that we have in our database, a picture, general description, habitat for those individual species. So again, that's at every level of the field guide. Anywhere you see this PDF symbol, you can download. So this would download, if I clicked on this, it would include all state listed noxious and county listed noxious across all counties. That's what that guide would have. It won't, actually, I'm not even sure the answer to this. If there's a state listed that's also county listed, it will only give you one of those. So, so again, just keep in mind that this field guide is there for you for invasive and pest species. And now let's go back out to our main homepage. Want to show you just one more resource here. Again, our species snapshot. So let's say you wanted to work with a member of the public. They don't have agency level access to Map Viewer. You could, but you want to, and you could also use this to generate something for your field crews. Again, we'll stick with our Beaverhead County theme here. County, Beaverhead. So there I've got my spatial filter. Let's say I want all plants from Beaverhead County. And then let's say I want just the invasive and pest species. And I want, I'm going to do them all. I'm going to do AIS, 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, and 3. We'll leave off the ag and forest pests and the biocontrol species. Submit that. And I've got 27 vascular plants that fit into that. And now I'm going to go ahead and download in the upper right here. I'm going to download a custom field guide for those species, that list of species. So there we go. There's all my filter criteria, plants, Beaverhead County, all of those status, and then a 1, 2, or 3 pager on each of those species. So, and with that, I'm going to pause and let you do your last poll question, Jane, and then I'll go through some more focal stuff on the modeling.
Okay, I'll open the final poll question.
All right, and
okay,
here's more positive feedback, Jane. We've already had, looks like we've got Inga Hawbaker, Jeff Bogey, Carol Konginski that have all set up Map Viewer accounts. Way to go!
Woohoo!
I will get you information materials out on Map Viewer as soon as this is over. It looks like you've got the results up on the screen and everybody is right. So you can generate those custom guides both on the species snapshot as well as in that bottom advanced search menu on the field guide. So good job, guys. I I could certainly go through details on modeling individual species, but I don't think I want to get into that unless there's specific questions. However, I do have a few other things I want to show everybody here in general. Whoops, little, to click through a few here. Here's just a spatial example for that Dyers woad example on how we model, and showing you that, let's say if we had a bunch of observations in one geographic area, we would randomly select observations out of that so that that area wouldn't be overly considered or spatially autocorrelated in our modeling effort. So again, if we have 88 total records, we might only model with 12 of them. Again, there's that continuous output. I won't go into how I will just say that we use the data itself to figure out which of those classes it's in on the landscape, optimal, moderate, but essentially it depends on how much of the data is falling into a particular model class. And then again, we can look at percent. When we're looking at this stuff statewide, we can look at how much of it is, oops, I'm sorry, I've got a delay on my, I'm a little slow right now on my computer. I just wanted to point out that for each of these areas, we can say statewide, how many square kilometers is at risk of invasion for each of these species based on what we're seeing with our observation data currently. So, and then put a percentage of the state. So we could use that to prioritize survey efforts, prioritize control efforts. So that previous slide showed Dalmatian toadflax. This slide is our model for stem boring weevil on Dalmatian toadflax, the Maecenas janthiniformis. And then what we can do is overlay those two, and the intersection of those, which is shown in green here. So we've got the host weed in yellow only, the biocontrol agent only in blue, and then where they overlap in green. So that green area, in theory, based on our predicted habitat suitability models, is the low-hanging fruit, the best bang for your buck for introducing biocontrol species in this case. So we can also look at collective landscape risk by stacking up the model output across listed species or any species of interest. So again, the collective landscape risk, Western Montana, valley bottoms, greater risk than Eastern Montana in general. Valley bottoms in general, higher risk. Nothing that none of us don't already know. But it's nice to be able to prioritize that at a variety of spatial scales. So, and then I just want everybody to know we do have a current grant that we're on through the Noxious Weed Trust Fund, where we are modeling, again, we're making sure we have models in place for all state-listed noxious weeds, as well as county-listed noxious weeds, and then other higher priorities. One question I had for the group is, we may put out some other resources beyond Map Viewer, but we may put together a PowerPoint where we're just sort of, summarizing that for individual species, and we can make that available. Bottom line is we're here to provide the information, resources, and support your efforts in resource management. So if you can give us feedback on what would help you with your efforts, that would be appreciated. And again, we'd also appreciate feedback on the models themselves and what you think of the output. So again, I'm just toggling through a few models here to give you a flavor for them.
Bryce, I have a question. When you showed us a slide a few slides back about where
Yep.
you overlaid all the like noxious weeds in the state,
Yep.
and there was a lot of area kind of in the eastern half or eastern third that was white.
Yes.
How do we interpret that?
Interpret that as this is a preliminary stacking. This will take just a second to answer this, Jane. So our output for these models is 90 meter pixel output. Then I was mentioning that we've had a problem in the past of people coming back to us with that 90 meter pixel output, and like literally we've put it on a GPS unit and said, go around, see what you think of this. And we've had problems where people are like, hey, this pixel is wrong. And we're like, no, that's not how you want to use this. You want to use it at the landscape scale, like square, mini square miles kind of scale. And so one thing that we've done is taken it from that 90 meter pixel, and then we aggregate it up to that 1 square mile hexagon. And that also allowed us to show it on our website. So what you're seeing here is a stacking of those 1 square mile hexagons. And it's showing you that once it's aggregated at that scale, the white areas are kind of falling out. We recognize this as a problem, though, because those really aren't white. They have some level of risk, and it's kind of getting multiplied. So what we're going to do is go back to the 90 meter pixel output, stack it at the 90 meter pixel output, and then rescale it to the 1 square mile hexagon output. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And I just want to pause there, and we're kind of coming up on time, so I think maybe it's just a good time to call it quits on showing websites and answer any questions that we have.
Great, Bryce. Yeah, we have a couple questions to get to, and if you have a question you want to ask Bryce, please type it in the question and answer panel now. There was a question here, Bryce, and I hope I read it correctly, from Jesse in far eastern Montana. Can you download as a shapefile the survey protocol or whichever task you are looking at for a particular area of interest?
Not as a shapefile. And so there's two lines of response here, Jesse. You could, for instance, go to, I'll switch task, and with your agency level access on, you could go to point observation data, and I will clear that polygon, and then I will say we want to filter by species status, and then I want to filter by, I want all of those invasive species. If I then zoom over to Carter County, thing that's on my map screen at that point, so there's the data that we have. I guess this is all invasives. I could export to Excel, and anything that's in my map screen there, I want to get species and observations. I can export that to a CSV file or an Excel file, either way. And then just show you this, I'll open it up. Let's see if I can find it amongst my many spreadsheets. I'm not going to be able to find it. So what I want to say, just to wrap that up, is that the latitude longitude coordinates will be included in that file, and then you could make out of that CSV, you could make a shapefile. However, that's one answer. Another answer is you could go to, anybody can do this, go to data, submit request, use your map viewer profile, submit a new request and say, hey, I'd like a geodatabase of maybe only one invasives, maybe you want all natives. Tell us what you want and we will ship you a geodatabase. Furthermore, if you wanted to be put on a recurring list and say, give me a new geodatabase every 6 months, we'll just put you on that recurring data list. You won't have to file any more requests, and we'll ship that out to you every 6 months. So either way, you can do that if you're a GIS user.
Jesse says, awesome. Thank you, Bryce. Earlier, when we were just getting rolling on the webinar, someone had entered into the chat box. They were curious about where we are with the risk models for Ventonata.
Yep. So we have a preliminary model there, and I was showing it a little earlier. I'll bring that back up on screen here. I think I can bring that back up on screen. Maybe I can't. I guess I can't. But we do have a preliminary one in place right now, but it's not loaded in MapViewer yet. We're undertaking a variety of modeling efforts right now. Oh, I just discovered what happened. My cat disconnected my other screen. I will show you the Ventonata model right now. That's good. Thanks.
That's pretty good you discovered that while giving a webinar.
Yeah, here's the Ventonata preliminary model. Again, we were trying to have a little bit more data in before we finalize this. You could kind of see it's a little blockier, and I don't know. I don't think it's going to change too much, but we want to get some more data in before we finalize this model and put it up on MapViewer.
Great, thank you. And Bryce, is it fair to say the more people report where they're finding weeds, the better these models become?
Absolutely, absolutely. If we have a lot of data in one location, additional data in that general location doesn't help the models that much. But if it's in an area that we don't have data, it's a huge help for the models. Absolutely.
All right, everybody. So there's your motivation. Well, additional motivation for reporting where you're finding species. Becky, are you seeing any other questions in the Q&A or anything showing up in the chat that I'm missing?
I haven't, and I somehow missed Jesse's question. So hopefully I haven't seen any others.
All right.
Well,
go ahead,
I just want to, the last thing I want to say is please, 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 if you've got any questions about how to use the information resources, just shoot me an email. But if you go ahead and set up a MapViewer account, I'll get you hooked up, and then we can go from there, or you can submit a request on our data submissions there, and we'll get you out a geodatabase or put you on the list for receiving those regularly. Just let us know.
Thanks so much, Bryce. It is amazing how much information is in the program, and just the power of that information and how we can use it. So thank you so much for sharing today. I encourage everybody to go onto the website sooner than later while some of these ideas are fresh in your mind and play around with it. We will have this recording shared on the website where you register for the Weedy Wednesday webinars. So you can always use that too as a reference for if you get stuck somewhere, maybe refer to that. But thanks so much, Bryce. I do have a couple things to say before we call it a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to stop recording.